On Tuesday, January 7th, the President Nicolás Maduro led the swearing-in of the combatant corps of Venezuela to guarantee the integral defense of the nation with civil-military union. And in Brazil, the Air Force said Monday it had extracted data from two black box recorders of the crashed Azerbaijan airline planes. The Foreign Minister of Panama reiterated the sovereignty of the Panama Canal with respect to the declarations of President-elect Donald Trump that he does not rule out the idea of restoring to military force to regain control of the interoceanic waterway. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Tuesday, January 7th, the President Nicolás Maduro led the swearing-in of combatant corps of Venezuela made up of workers, companies and public institutions to guarantee the integral defense of the nation. Maduro reiterated that in recent days and hours, the number of threats against the Venezuelan people has increased, so he stressed that he will continue to protect the peace of Venezuelans.
The body of integral direction for the defense of peace in Venezuela are activated at national level in the 335 municipalities in all parish and communities of the country, because in Venezuela we're going to make history again and peace will triumph.
President of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, called on international fascism not to make a mistake with his leadership and with the people of Venezuela, stating that he will defend the stability of the country with his life.
Aunque Dios me puso en este puesto y tengo sus bendiciones.
Although God put me in this position and I have His blessings, I am here as a humble man of the people. I am a man of the people, and that is how I assume myself with humility. And I say, imperialist fascists, do not make a mistake with me. Do not make a mistake with me again. Do not make a mistake with the people of Venezuela. We are determined to win. We are determined to preserve peace, to preserve the national independence of Venezuela. We are determined to defend the rights of the people, to defend it with our own lives, if it were necessary, so that the country may live, so that the country may grow.
In this regard, the Venezuelan head of state detailed that in the last 24 hours, 7 foreign mercenaries were captured, among them 2 United States citizens who intended to carry out terrorist actions against the peace of the country.
Today alone, we have captured 7 foreign mercenaries, including 2 important mercenaries from the United States of America. They have already been captured. We caught them with material of the highest level, as they have never been captured before in our country, in our Venezuela. They are arrested, and I'm sure that in the next few hours they will be confessing. They came here to develop terrorist actions against peace in our country. 2 Colombian hired assassins were captured in different parts of Venezuela, and 3 mercenaries who came from Ukraine to bring violence to our territory. 7 mercenaries were captured today in total. 7 mercenaries at this hour, and the operations continue. And the situation is tense. We are going after them. We are going after them because Venezuela has to be respected.
In Venezuela, the president of the National Electoral Council, Luis Amoroso, declared that the election of the people of Venezuela will be confirmed on January 10th in the presence of all public powers of the state, with the swearing-in of President-elect Nicolás Maduro.
Here, on January 10, we will swear in the President-elect Nicolás Maduro Moros, winner of the last elections of July 28th by the National Assembly as established by the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, and in the presence of all the public powers, there is no other president here in Venezuela. He is the president. He won the elections that took place on July 28, and the results are the same that were announced by the headquarters of the National Electoral Council.
In this context, Amor also questioned the world tour of the Venezuelan fugitive Edmundo González, who is looking for allies to try to destabilize the peace of the country a few days before the inauguration of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro.
Como digo yo, si alguien hubiese tenido algunas actas.
As I said before, if someone had any minutes, don't you think it would be easier to take them to the Supreme Court when the Supreme Court made the call? Or do you think it was easier to go to the European Union or to go around looking for lying allies in other countries or governments? Wasn't it easier to bring them here or take them 4 or 5 blocks away from here than to go and play such a sad role?
The government of Nicaragua offered its support to the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, just days before his inauguration as head of state on January 10th. Through a statement, the government presided by Daniel Ortega and Rosario Murillo expressed recognizing ourselves in struggle against the classic format of fascist provocation that oppresses and tries to overturn the rights and freedoms of our peoples. A few hours before the legitimate presidential inauguration of comrade Nicolás Maduro, we expressed to his people, to his institutions, to the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, and to our own brother Nicolás Maduro, our firm and permanent support from our Nicaragua blessed and always free. We now have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English. We'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Brazil, the Air Force said Monday it had extracted data from 2 black box recorders of the crashed Azerbaijan Airlines plane. The Brazilian-made Embraer 190 crash-landed in Kazakhstan after being diverted from a scheduled landing in the Chechen capital of Grozny in southern Russia, killing 38 of the 67 people on board. Azerbaijan has stated the plane was shot down by Russian air defenses, which Moscow says were operating in the area at the time. Russian President Vladimir Putin has apologized for the incident in his country's airspace, but has not responded to claims that the plane was hit by Russian weapons. And in Brazil, the company in charge of Sao Paulo's electricity service, Enel, reported Tuesday that about 150,000 homes are still without power after heavy rains. By early afternoon, 650,000 users were without power, although Enel reported that at 500,000 homes, electricity was restored in the first 30 minutes. In the capital, heavy rains accompanied by wind and hail were reported, prompting the mayor's office Weather Emergency Management Center to declare a state of alert for flooding in the southern, southeastern, and eastern zones. And in Argentina, 11 defendants were charged with crimes against humanity in Chaco for crimes committed during the civil military dictatorship of Rafael Videla. Federal Judge Zunilda Nirenberger ordered the indictment for crimes committed during the last civil military dictatorship between 1974 and 1977. Among the victims of the crimes committed at the secret detention center of the former investigative brigade of the Chaco police are students, social activists, teachers, and an 8-month-old baby with his mother. Among the defendants are former military, police, and prison officials, including Aldo Martinez Segón, Tadeo Petoli, and Jose Francisco Rodriguez Valiente. Also in Argentina, the dialogue table established between the state and the Mapuche Tehuelche community of Los Pailaco Foltec have made no progress on the deadline for the eviction is approaching. The federal judge of Escal, Guido Otranto, has given the community until January 9th to leave the place where they have lived for generations. Otherwise, the evasion will be carried out by public force. Despite the threat of eviction, members of the community have expressed their willingness to resist. They are organizing a call for solidarity and support from different sectors to confront this situation. And in Ecuador, the National Court of Justice demanded respect for the independence of powers and rejected any type of interference in the judicial function of the body. The entity demanded absolute respect for the resolutions of the magistrates following the accusations of the Minister of Defense against a judge who decreed the forced disappearance in the case of the 4 minors captured by a military patrol. It was also pointed out that threatening or sanctioning judges for their legitimate decisions is a direct attack on the rule of law and due process. For his part, the minister asserted that he would not allow the sentence to be used to bring the armed forces who work for peace and respect for human rights to their knees. In Uruguay, the small town of Garzón, located 170 kilometers from Montevideo, is undergoing a unique transformation that has captivated international artists, tourists, and collectors. Now in its 8th edition, the Campo Festival has been responsible for putting Garzón on the global art radar. Created by U.S. photographer Heidi Lender, the event brought together more than 20 international artists, and one of the highlights of the festival was the sound installation by artist Lucas Cunha, who replaced the traditional benches of the local chapel with a series of sound boxes and rubber hammers. We now have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. On Tuesday, the Foreign Minister of Panama, Javier Martinez Acha, reiterated the sovereignty of the Panama Canal with respect to declarations of President-elect Donald Trump that does not rule out the idea of resorting to military force to regain control of the interoceanic waterway.
Reitero lo que ya ha dicho el presidente José.
I reiterate what President José Raúl Mulino has already stated. The sovereignty of our canal is non-negotiable, as it is part of our history of struggle and permanent achievement.
In this sense, the Foreign Minister of Panama points out that the only hands that control the canal are Panamanian, and that this will continue to be the case.
Las únicas manos que controlan el canal son panameñas.
The only hands that control the canal are Panamanians, and that will always be the case. We are a country open to dialogue, investments, and good relations, but with a clear stance that the homeland comes first.
In Palestine, at least 49 people were killed in a new attack by the Israeli occupation army in the devastated Gaza Strip. The last hours, above being killed 10 people, all from the same family in the refugee camp of Bureij, while the Nasser hospital in Han Yunis, the main hospital in the south of the Strip, received 20 bodies in the last hours, 10 of them children and 5 women. 7 people, including 5 minors, were killed in the shelling of a house in the Kizam Rashwan neighborhood, where several families were sheltering. After 460 days of the Zionist regime's genocidal campaign, the number of people killed has reached 45,885, and more than 190,000 have been wounded. In Palestine, Doctors for Human Rights condemned the Israeli regime's refusal to allow legal access to detain Gaza doctor Hussam Abu Safiya, director of the Kama Adwan Hospital. In a social media post, the health worker said that despite requests to send a lawyer, the Israeli army claims that Abu Safiya is barred from receiving a legal hearing until January 10th. The group also stressed that professionals are protected by international humanitarian law, but that more than 1,000 doctors have been killed. The director was kidnapped by the occupation army in northern Gaza a day after the soldiers stormed the hospital under his responsibility and took it out of service. The Lebanese army continued on Tuesday with the deployment of units in localities in western and central sectors of the southern border following the Israeli withdrawal. According to the armed forces, the movement in these regions occurred while the deployment of Naqoura was being completed, and specialized patrols were carrying out engineering work aimed at removing unexploded munitions, opening roads, and removing debris. In this context, Naqoura Mayor Abbas Awara reported that the town is almost completely destroyed and urged residents to wait before returning until the comprehensive field assessment. Authorities indicate that a relocation will only be allowed with the support of the Army and civil defense teams after confirming that the area is safe. Moving on, in Iran, oil production and exports continue to grow despite sanctions imposed by Western countries seeking to destroy the country's economy. Despite facing some of the toughest sanctions from the West, Iran has built a roaring global trade for its oil. Revenues from oil exports reached $53 billion in 2023, up from $54 billion a year earlier. As for the U.S. attacks, Iran has warned President-elect Donald Trump that applying maximum pressure on the Persian nation will again be a failure. And in South Korea, police said on Wednesday they were tracking the exact location of President Yoon Suk-yeol in case he left his residence after a possible arrest. A police official indicated that they could not specifically disclose Yoon's current whereabouts. However, he is believed to have been mostly confined to his Seoul residence since mid-December, when he was impeached by the National Assembly. Last Friday, the police managed to confirm that Yoon was at his residence when several agents led by officials from the Office for the Investigation of Corruption Cases involving senior officials tried unsuccessfully to arrest him after his security service blocked access to the residence. In Australia, a seaplane crashed shortly after taking off from the Western Australia island, killing 3 people and injuring others. Police said only one of the 7 people aboard the Cessna 280 caravan was rescued without injury after it crashed on Rottnest Island on Tuesday afternoon. The plane, owned by Swan River Seaplanes, was returning to its base in Perth, 30 kilometers east of Rottnest Island. Western Australian Premier Roger Cook said the crash killed a 65-year-old Swiss woman, a 60-year-old Danish man, and a 34-year-old pilot from Perth. The tourist companions, a 63-year-old Swiss man and a 58-year-old Danish woman, survived. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social medias, Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok. TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos, and before leaving, we leave you with the winners of the reality show Factor M, winners for the son of the campaign of President Nicolás Maduro. Thank you for watching.
Venezuela, nos fuimos arriba. Esta es mi patria querida. 2, 1, brinca. Revolución con Nicolás. Revolución con Nicolás. El pueblo unido está en la lucha. Con Nicolás hacemos historia. El pueblo unido está en la lucha. Vamos para adelante con Nicolás. El pueblo unido está en la lucha. Con Nicolás hacemos historia. El pueblo unido está en la lucha. Vamos para adelante con Nicolás. Pa'lante Nicolás.
Yo juro con Maduro, presidente de la paz.
Pa'lante Nicolás.
Por el pueblo, por la vida, un sentimiento nacional.
El pueblo en la calle dice presente. Escucha, presidente, somos su gente. Estamos en la batalla contra la oligarquía, defendiendo la patria mía como Bolívar. El pueblo unido está en la lucha. Con Nicolás hacemos historia. El pueblo unido está en la lucha. Vamos para adelante con Nicolás. El pueblo vamos a la batalla.